Hello, everybody. Simon Dixon here for another interview. And today we have Dr. Roman Yampolskiy. I wanted to get an AI expert because my thoughts around what's happening in the future of money, especially with central bank digital currencies, I thought was going to really be combined with artificial intelligence to actually really affect our personal freedoms, liberties. And I had some theories around that, but I wanted a real expert on the show so that we could discuss it live and everyone else could benefit from the conversation. So when we were looking for an AI expert, we came across Dr. Roman Yampolskiy because he was featured in a documentary. He's a real AI expert and researcher. He's actually a computer scientist at the University of Louisville. And the documentary that we saw he was featured in We Need to Talk About AI, which featured famous Hollywood producer and director James Cameron. So we had an initial conversation about his thoughts, and then we decided to get him on the show because it was so interesting what we thought the future might look like when money and artificial intelligence are combined around central bank digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, and just really the future of finance in general. I found it an incredibly interesting conversation. I hope you enjoy it too, and I'll see you on the other side. Hello, everybody. Simon Dixon here. As I said in the intro, I'm here with Dr. Roman Yampolskiy, and today we're going to be learning about artificial intelligence and how it relates to the crypto and finance industry. So, Dr. Roman, why don't you just give us a brief intro into your journey into AI? I know you've been interviewed recently on many high-profile films. Even tell us a little background about how you got into AI and what you're doing now.
So I was always interested in the future of technology. I read lots of science fiction. I love movies about the future, and I wanted to be a part of that movement. So I got a PhD in computer science, and I did a lot of research on different aspects of cybersecurity and biometrics, which surprisingly is very helpful when you're trying to control advanced artificial intelligence. So I'm kind of merging the field of AI and machine learning with cybersecurity, and we call it AI safety and security. So basically, thousands of people trying to make more capable systems. I'm trying to make them behave as anticipated.
Okay, so why don't you just give us a basic definition, because AI seems to have become like this catch-all phrase for all sorts of technology. How do you see, when you think of artificial intelligence, what are you referring to?
So first, intelligence. Intelligence is ability to get to your goals in any environment. If you're in a stock market, your goal may be to make money. If you're playing chess, your goal is a checkmate. Doesn't matter. Intelligence is your ability to optimize for your goals in any situation. Artificial intelligence is us teaching computers how to do that, how to help us with our projects, with physical labor, cognitive labor, essentially automating what it is we do as people.
Okay, that's a great definition. And I can see why a lot of people put lots of different things within that definition of artificial intelligence. So you say you deal with the intersection with security. So how does artificial intelligence and security overlap?
So first of all, AI is a dual-use technology. You can use it to help protect your cyber infrastructure, looking for attacks, looking for exploits, but you can also use it as a tool to perform hacking, to discover new exploits. So that's a standard cybersecurity angle for AI. It's another piece of software. How do we secure it? How do we make sure no one messes with your algorithm, with your data set? But AI is not just a tool, it's also an agent. As they get more capable, they can do more and more independently. And the goal is to get to human level performance and beyond. At that point, the system can make decisions which we may not like. So how do we control such systems? How do we control another intelligent agent and possibly a more intelligent agent?
Yeah. And how do we do that?
Welcome to my research. I don't know. I spent 10 years trying to figure it out, and I have no idea. No one else does.
Yeah.
But it's worth trying.
Okay. But AI is an inevitability on the current path that we're heading in life, right? Computers are going to get more intelligent. We're going to ask computers to do more things. And at some stage, we reach that phase where computers can do things much faster, much better than us, and then do we enter into that scary world where intelligence or AI is more intelligent than humans, or what do you see happening there?
Right, so most people would agree it will eventually happen. People disagree a lot on how soon. Some say 7 years, some say 20 years, some say 1,000 years. But it doesn't really matter. The problems remain the same. It doesn't matter how soon. We still need to figure out how to control those systems, how to make sure this transition is beneficial. And yes, the point is, if we are successful to achieve some sort of control, then we have this amazing helper, someone who's smarter than us, but is willing to help us with our problems. How do we cure cancer? How do we create a lot of wealth? If we fail to control that system, now we have no idea what it's trying to optimize for. It's a great optimizer, but we don't have any control over what it's going to do. So it could be not so optimistic.
Yeah, so when I wrote the book over 10 years ago, Bank to the Future, I talked a lot about some of the technologies that would free up the financial system and free up humankind as well. What I didn't forecast and I didn't fully appreciate at the time was the impact it would have on privacy, your personal freedoms, your personal liberties. So where does this desire to push everything towards artificial intelligence, how does that intersect with people wanting to actually keep their data private, and are the two interrelated in any way?
Well, you need data to create very capable systems. And the more data you're willing to share, the better the system can perform. Whatever it is, recommender system for Amazon shopping or Netflix movie recommendation system. If you honestly say, I like this, I don't like that, you'll get much better user experience. But you're right, in the process, you lose your privacy. And that's a decision you have to make. Do I want better user experience and be completely in the open with the system? Or do I really care about not being well known? The problem is, today you may be performing certain actions. You're on social media, you walk by a public camera. Technology of the future would be able to go back, look at that data, and still extract information about you, even though it wasn't possible today. So in a way, everything you do today, you training this future algorithm, future model about you. So that's kind of scary on a whole different level.
So pretty much everything we're doing right now is really feeding the AI bots to become more intelligent. And, AI just seems like a government's dream, right? This is what they want in the end, absolute control over everything. Or do governments need to fear AI when essentially they can perform governance more intelligent than human governments?
Right. So until we hit that level of performance where it's general intelligence, it's a great tool for any type of dictatorial government to control people, to monitor people, and it's very scary. But the moment it hits human level performance or beyond, you lose control over it. So it's kind of two-sided sword.
Can you imagine a world where artificial intelligence is controlling drones, whether they're going to bomb a country or not, and really wars are actually driven by artificial intelligence or even prevented by artificial intelligence? Perhaps it's our path to world peace. Do you see any of these trends?
Well, military AI is a completely different animal. Most people agree that weaponizing our military with intelligence systems, so smart nuclear bombs or something like that, is just a bad idea all around. My concern is more about systems which are not explicitly created to kill people, but which may misbehave in certain ways because we just didn't consider all possible options, all possible paths to their goals. So it's very likely that military will develop advanced AI. They're investing a lot of money in this type of technology, but it's basically unpredictable what those systems would do once they get to this level of performance. There is a very simple proof. Basically, if you could predict what they do, you would be just as smart. So by definition, we have no idea what happens once we hit that singularity point.
Yeah. So your work is really centered around AI is an inevitability. How do we bring this to the world safely? Is that a fair summary?
Right. How do we make it safer? I'm skeptical that we can make it 100% safe, but we can definitely make it better, improve it as much as possible, given the resources we have.
So, do you see a world where these AI machines essentially do become more powerful than humans, or do you think that will the AI machine will always need humans to put that input in?
Oh, we are kind of useless already. I mean, at this point, we're not contributing much. And if you think about a super intelligent system, you have nothing to contribute. People talk about creating cyborgs, joining machines and kind of using their speed and memory and human brain to create this more powerful system. But if you think about it, you quickly realize you don't contribute anything to the equation. You have this smarter system, faster than you, more memory. What is it you're going to add? Nothing. So initially it will keep you around, but implicitly you're no longer in control, right? And eventually, even explicitly, you are just removed. You're a bottleneck in the system. You're slowing it down with your silly biological processing and stupid goals.
So switching gears slightly, when we look at the trends that we've seen over the last few decades in the financial system, it's definitely been a shift towards digitization. So, things like war on cash, making anonymous money illegal or irrelevant or less relevant in the world. And also since, law changes that have happened since 9/11, for example, an absolute desire to know every single move that you make in your financial affairs in the name of taking down money laundering. So now we've got all of this financial data all digitized. All currencies are essentially all digital. There is no cash. What do you think the future is of our digital money? Forget about things like Bitcoin for now, just the money that exists, the fiat currencies. Where do you think governments are going to start to change their currencies, implement AI into this, and what do you think the effects are going to be?
I'm not sure how soon it's going to happen, but it's definitely going to be smart money. Money itself will be capable of figuring out how to invest itself, how to start a company. So smart contracts, smart money combined together. Governments initially will see a lot of benefit from this complete tracking because taxation becomes very easy. You can tax all the dark money, and I don't have to do my taxes, which is a good one for me. I definitely hate that part. But the problem is if it's done anything like Bitcoin, where you cannot just keep printing more money, the whole structure of a government collapses. They're based on this idea of just printing infinite supply. They may not like this need for balancing budgets and actually having to balance revenues with spending.
So do you think that we could reach a phase where, science, I call it more of an art, but sciences like economics have never actually really figured out how to, central banks have never figured out how to perform their goals. If their goal is market stability, prevention of boom and bust, trying to control the money supplies to a set level of inflation, deflation, humans have never actually been able to achieve that. Do you see a world where the Federal Reserve, when it was pure, if it's purely artificial intelligence, might be able to perform functions for the economy a lot better than we can today?
So I think a lot of people kind of consider future technology, but from only one angle. So you're saying in the future we'll have artificial intelligence, but at that point, is money a meaningful construct? You have free labor, free physical labor, free cognitive labor, worth trillions of dollars. What is the use of money at that point? You cannot hire people because machines are basically free. Nobody can produce money directly because you are useless. So at this point, I think we have very different and bigger concerns. You're less worried about your 401k in a world of free labor and super intelligent machines.
So, okay, so you see this as really artificial intelligence being a war on labor, on human labor, and humans are going to have to think differently. So rather than you paying exorbitant fees to a fund manager to manage your 401k, there'll be a bot that will be, well, I guess there'll be lots of bots competing to outperform markets, removing the need for the fund manager, disrupting different types of markets in terms of investments, potential of managing economies, fiscal and monetary policies, all done through artificial intelligence. And then the fact that the banks are actually, and governments have all of your financial data and information. We can have automation of tax collection. But then again, as the world gets more global, aren't there going to be multiple governments all trying to get a piece of the action and automate their tax policies? And really, we could end up in a stage where fiat currency becomes an absolute Orwellian nightmare. Do you see that happening?
So again, I think more extreme. If you think about 300 years ago, people assumed the country needed a king, right? King did something. Today, Queen of England, lovely person, nothing against her, but she's useless. She contributes nothing, right? She's a figurehead. All these feds, controlling agencies will go the same way. In a world where you have literally free labor, modern current economic practices cannot exist. They don't make any sense. If you have abundance of products and services, all created by those machines, again, the assumption is we'll learn to control them. If we didn't, none of it applies anyways, it's worse. But if we control them, now you have one assistant helping us, that's wonderful. You have thousands of super intelligent assistants doing everything for you. How important is it for you to make 4% on your stock portfolio?
So you're seeing this as the disruption of money itself and a more efficient barter economy where humans end up doing the things that they want to do and love because robots can become the servants of the things that they normally needed to achieve, well, earn money to achieve.
Right. Absolute disruption of all aspects of our current economy, and a lot of it includes social structure, labor. What you do with your life will change greatly. For most people, they're not doing what they do because they love it or enjoy it. They do it to make money. If money itself becomes less valuable, perhaps they have to find different ways to fulfill their goals in life, have new goals.
Okay. All right. So yeah, going beyond my thoughts on monetary reform and more around monetary disruption.
Short term, you're right. Short term, we'll see exactly that. We'll see narrow AIs assisting fund managers and doing better investing. We see a lot of it already with automated trading. But I'm looking at what is the final goal for this technology, where it's heading.
What about things like, so with Bitcoin, you obviously, whoever owns the private key owns the Bitcoin and owns the value. You know, I've often thought about in doing things like inheritance planning and all sorts of stuff. You notice that there's some major complications around owning your own money, as it were. But then I often always, you know, think about things like, you know, I'm a Tesla driver, and I can imagine some artificial intelligence or some bot or some hacker hacking into your Tesla, the Tesla. Demanding a Bitcoin ransom or being driven off a cliff. There's some really, really scary things that you can think of, especially as the hackersphere. You talked about your experience being, you know, the AI can be used for to prevent hackers or to actually do the hacking itself. Who's going to win that argument?
So again, we need to separate AI as a tool, narrow AI, we have right now, and it's possible right now to hack your Tesla and demand a ransom. It's perfectly reasonable. So until we get to human level performance, the singularity point, this model continues. After that, it's a completely different game, and you cannot predict how it's going to be played. That's the scary part of it. We cannot fully prepare for what to anticipate.
Yeah. So I imagine in the very near-term future, governments issuing central bank-based digital currencies in order to stimulate the economy or protect from bank bailouts or bail-ins. And once we have these central bank-based digital currencies, I can just imagine the robots all picking up all the data right now, demanding you to download an app in order to actually access that money. Maybe it's some helicopter money in the case of the States. And then eventually, it will be connected to whether you had, whether you contracted a virus or whatever it may be. That will then control whether you can get on a plane. That switches off your passport, switches off your wallet. This really can be a ginormous Orwellian nightmare.
So you're talking about like the social score in China, right? That's already a system in existence.
Well, the model already exists. There you go. The map of where it seems we're headed globally already exists in China.
Right. And right now it's observational. The system looks at your behavior, how long before they can actually read your mind. We're starting to develop brain-computer interfaces. So thinking the wrong thing can get you off of that plane.
Yeah. Oh God. So what do you think this is in the end game, in your world? Maybe you don't forecast these things, you just go with the flow and figure out what to do as it comes. But do you think this is going to become a servant of humans, or humans are going to become a servant of AI?
I can't think of any examples where lower intelligence controls higher intelligence long term. I'm trying to establish limits to what we can do. So my recent work is all about limits of predictability, explainability, comprehensibility, controllability. So far, all of them have very hard limits on what can be done. I'm trying to see if there is any workarounds, any loopholes, but so far it doesn't look too promising.
Yeah. Why don't we switch gears again slightly then? Tell us a bit about some of the work that you're involved with. I think we first discovered you because we were looking for an AI expert, and I think your AI bot actually started following someone from my team, and it actually, AI connected us. Then that is the reason why we're doing this interview right now. But you've been recently interviewed in some David Cameron films. Am I correct in saying that? Or?
He was one of the people in the movie. It wasn't his movie.
Okay, tell us a bit about the movie. What was that about?
It's a great documentary. They're asking basically the same questions we've been going
guys.
around.
Hello?
What happens?
Hello. Sorry. Can you start that question again? Sorry to interrupt. This will be edited. Simon, you said David Cameron is
The Prime Minister.
Yeah, James
I caught
Cameron.
it and adjusted it automatically. I figured
James
I know
Cameron. That's the key selling point as well. All right, start your question again, please.
Okay. So switching gears again, why don't you tell us a bit about what you're up to right now? I believe that you were recently interviewed for a James Cameron documentary, or James Cameron was featured in it. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, the interview was 2 years ago. It came out recently, so the idea is older now. But it's a great movie. They essentially look at the same set of questions we've been addressing. What happens as AI becomes more capable? The movie is called We Need to Talk About AI. And it's a bunch of experts, both very optimistic and somewhat skeptical about benefits of this technology, discussing what are the possible outcomes. How powerful can this technology get? Can we control it? And if the answer is no, what does that mean for humanity? So a lot of big AI names in that movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Very good movie.
Awesome. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of crypto people that will be watching this. Where do you see the intersection between AI? Is this more in the blockchain smart contract field, or do you think it's going to intersect with money and Bitcoin? Have you thought much about these things?
Absolutely, everything you mentioned. Additionally, for safety and security, it's important to be able to keep track of what has been data going in, what actions have been taken. So recording it on blockchain, there is a number of startups which already do that, logging all the actions of AI. Likewise, you can have a whole infrastructure for intelligent systems to interact, and this is a perfect world for them. You have computational contracts, legal contracts, which could be easily implemented between such systems. So to me, that's the area of interest, how we can develop it to where it's fast enough so it can actually be used by AI researchers. Right now, it's probably too slow to actually do anything meaningful other than record a few timestamps. But I think there is a lot of future in merging those two technologies.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the major applications that comes from smart contracts is really things like derivatives, and putting every single financial product onto a blockchain. Combine that with some of the financial modeling used of traditional derivatives, and you can see where this is all going. And so I think that's it. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in terms of some of the stuff that you're up to right now and how this relates to the finance side?
Well, it's interesting. We have this crazy market right now with pandemic and protests and everything. 2020 is an interesting year. So it's interesting. I guess I can ask you a question. The predictions people made about the value of Bitcoin, if government prints so much extra currency, deflation, inflation, it doesn't seem to follow any of the models we have used so far. It's surprising us every time it moves. Can you give us any idea of what's going on there?
Yeah, so when you get, and obviously the demand for dollars, because the whole world is in debt in dollars, and everybody needs dollars, about 70% of the entire currency of the world is dollars, 55% of all transactions happen in dollars. Whenever you get a situation, you naturally get a flight to dollars. So the world sees dollars as a safe haven, as it were. We saw even gold during 2008 crash because everyone was dumping their gold $4. We saw the same during this pandemic. Everyone dumped everything they got $4. And so people start to question, is Bitcoin and the stock market correlated? Well, what Bitcoin is meant to be is Bitcoin gives you the ability to own your own money, spend your own money, and have a monetary policy you can rely upon that's fixed and can never be changed. And so what I found is that the times when you get spikes in Bitcoin price is when the world starts to discover that they need such things. So an example is the first spike was during WikiLeaks, when the world realized that the banking system could just censor people, and therefore they could use Bitcoin, and then that created demand for Bitcoin. Then, for example, when people learn that their money at a bank isn't actually their own money, and in Cyprus they could use it to recapitalize the bank, then we got a second spike in Bitcoin where people realized actually it's not just important to be able to spend your own money, it's also important to be able to own your own money. And then when you see things like what we're going through right now, where the Fed is announcing unlimited money in order to stimulate, people will eventually start to realize, okay, it's important to actually have something that contracts that money supply. And so when you get pockets of new utility, new adoption, you've always had the normal adoption, which is people considering it as a store of value or get rich quick scheme or whatever they might be. You always get that speculative bubbles. But it's with every one of these trends, you tend to get new spikes in utility. So in this market, initially you get a crash with the other markets as everyone flees to dollars. If everyone needs to pay their dollar debts, if everyone needs to pay their dollar rent, then they haven't got any space left for Bitcoin. And so you see that initial crash, but then the big pockets of money start to realize that what are the trends here? What are the things that, and then I think you start to see waves of price based upon everyday events of people realizing they need to own their own money, spend their own money, and have a fixed money supply. That's how I interpret things at the moment.
So why do you think them printing such a large additional supply doesn't impact anything, doesn't impact prices, inflation? Is there a point, can they print 100 times as much? Can they print 1 trillion and give it to every one of us? At what point do you actually need to collect tax revenue? Can you stop taxing people and just print more money? It seems like this impossible perpetual motion device.
Yeah, and it's a really good question. What I see at the moment, again, you've got to treat the dollar separately to the rest of the world, because the dollar has special privileges due to its financial markets, due to gold being priced in dollars, due to oil being priced in dollars, and due to its function as a store of value that central banks hold, and the fact that all global central banks are in the lenders to the US through treasuries. So the US dollar, when it renegotiated its special power during 1944 during the Bretton Woods negotiations, and then removed the pegging to gold that essentially moved to a debt-based US dollar fiat standard. Because the Federal Reserve is the only organization that's able to print dollars, and because organizations all around the world have got, or countries all around the world have got dollar-denominated debts, then you end up in a situation where America can export its inflation globally. And when you have, if in its domestic nation, because what you got to remember is that every time someone borrows money, it's new money that's being created. Every time someone defaults on that money, then dollars get destroyed because they're all digital units in a bank. So at the moment, they're making up the supply, but at the same rate, bankruptcies are causing similar levels of money destruction. So inflation is only caused when you have money that is circulating at a faster rate than debt and bankruptcies are happening. So you tend to get deflation in times when money's printing because that's what they're trying to prevent. But then eventually that translates as money starts to flow, as the velocity of money increases, that starts to flow into inflation. But then you can export that inflation globally, and people would tend to devalue their currencies in order to suck up some of that. Some of those dollars, and then re-lend them to the government. So it's one big ginormous Ponzi scheme is the answer to it.
That seems like the right answer. So given that, what is the answer for all your listeners? What do we invest in? What's your prediction for the next 1-2 years? Gold, Bitcoin, cash, stocks? Tell us what to do and we'll check if you're right.
So I'm actually going to release a video series in August, which goes through exactly what I would do if I were building a portfolio during the Great Depression of 2020. And the answer to that is you are playing politics at the moment. The stock market is not the stock market. The stock market is the Federal Reserve and companies buying back their stocks and retail investors trying to figure out what to do with their pension. The market is no longer the market. You don't have these free market forces anymore. The government will do anything to stop the crash of the stock market. So you're playing politics now. So fundamental analysis is out the window. So all you can do now is you can try and prepare for several eventualities. And there's only really four eventualities. And one is that we enter an inflationary environment. The second is we enter deflation. The third is that we enter a time of economic prosperity. And the fourth is we enter a time of economic decline and a depression. In all of those four outcomes, different asset classes will perform. And then you need a hedge against the financial system completely collapsing. So what I'm preparing for is a number of different eventualities. A traditional portfolio that will perform, that's heavy, does have a good portion of gold in it, that can perform in inflation, deflation, booms and busts. And then a second portfolio, which exists outside the traditional financial system, gives you Bitcoin exposure, dollar exposure through stable coins and yielding products, and then playing some of the decentralized finance trends. So everything's about asset allocation, diversification, but the one thing that most traditional financial players have got wrong at the moment is they haven't diversified for the simultaneous systemic risk of the financial system and dollar-denominated assets. And that's where Bitcoin comes in. That's where a lot of them are hedging with gold. But you need to hedge your gold as well. So as we've seen during a lockdown, what good is gold if you can't store it in your house? You have to store it in Switzerland or Singapore. And then there's a lockdown. And the moment that you need it the most, the moment gold will really be needed, is the exact time when you can't fly to Singapore and get your gold. So therefore, something like Bitcoin is a hedge against that scenario, and gold is a hedge against internet failure and AI blowing everything up.
So if I understand correctly, you're saying everything is possible, so diversify.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a series of risks. There's a bunch of risks. Politicians are going to decide whether we're in inflation, deflation, economic growth, or economic decline. There are asset classes that will perform in all of those environments. And thanks to Bitcoin, there's a completely new parallel financial system that allows you to protect from all of the systemic risks like bank bail-ins, bank bailouts, and everything else that can happen. So I'll release a full video series on exactly what I'm doing with very specifics. It's a pet project at the moment.
Cool. I'll look forward to that.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up now, Dr. Roman Yampolskiy. I've really enjoyed this. Where can people find out more about your work and what you're up to now?
I'm on social media. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. Just don't follow me home. It's very important.
Well, the AI bots will do that. So we're going to have you back again. I think we can talk a lot more. I think this is a constantly evolving topic, and I really, look forward to having seeing where this goes. Really, a lot of it petrifies me, but also a lot of it is exciting times as well. So thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Really appreciate you watching that video. Hope you enjoyed the content and you got a lot out of it. If you'd like to get a lot more, then please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell symbol, and YouTube will send you a notification every time. I'm also giving content on Twitter at Simon Dixon Twit, so you can follow me there. Over the last 10 years since I've been involved in the industry, from speaking at the very first Bitcoin conference in the world to actually before that, when I was involved in presentations for the banking and monetary reform community, I've always been focused on working with the high net worth investors at Bank to the Future and investing in the crypto companies and Bitcoin and fintech companies that made this industry. That meant that I never really focused on building a following because I really just focused on the relationships that I built. But now there's so much financial uncertainty. There's so much challenges that people are experiencing in both the economy and their personal financial situation that I really want to focus on making sure that more and more people get these messages. And also subscribe to the channel, and I'll make sure that I'm giving you the best information, the best thinking I've got, which regularly changes as this financial system unfolds. To get that information, subscribe, get the notifications, follow me on Twitter, like, share, so that more people can get this message. And I'll make sure that you're on top of the information curve as this financial system unfolds.